I
Love
created the Funding Studio 15 as an homage to Stephen Colbert and as a reminder of how important it is to protect our right to free speech, especially because it can be lost more easily than we think. So some of these questions are quick, some are a little deeper. You can answer them rapid fire however you would like. So, question one, what is one creative project or piece of art that changed the way you see the world?
Pablo Neruda wrote a poem about a bicycle. And the reason that it changed my life is because it's very simple. It really is just a poem about a bicycle, and it's beautiful. And it reminds me that art essentially is about changing the way we view our everyday life. It takes everyday life from mundane to miraculous to interesting to juicy to driven, and we can do that so simply.
What is a piece of advice you ignored that you probably should have listened to?
I had a friend when I first opened my business that was like, don't get nickeled and dimed in tiny projects. They'll take tons of your time. And I was like, nah, I'm building my business. I need to do it. It really can stretch you thin. It doesn't mean you should never do something small or take that on, but you need to be super mindful of your time around that.
Good advice. What is a piece of advice you're glad you ignored?
I don't know that I ever have had a piece of advice that was like so bad, but I think the general tenor of any time I've really felt in myself that there's something I need to do, there's always going to be someone that's like, no, you don't. And we have to get really good at listening to ourselves in those moments.
Absolutely. What is one thing creative entrepreneurs should stop apologizing for?
Our rates, what we're charging,
Mm,
I think creativity is we're obsessed with it. We're constantly consuming it, but we also devalue it. So anything that's creative tends to be devalued. There's also
right.
an intersectional aspect of that. If you're a woman, if you're disabled, if you're queer, if you're BIPOC, you're already also being taught by society that your services are valued less. So we need to make sure that we stay pretty strong with that.
Such great advice. What is one thing creative entrepreneurs should talk about more honestly?
Often we are both from the perspective of creativity and as entrepreneurs, we're creating into a void, particularly at first. And that can be scary and lonely and isolating. And we're given this sort of, we're supposed to be geniuses that are so dedicated to our work that we don't think about those things. But often there is conflict and fear, and we don't know if we're doing the right thing. We don't know if it matters, particularly in the beginning. And I think it's super important for us to talk about those feelings and those fears.
100%. What is the most underrated skill in building a creative entrepreneurial life?
Time management, which
Ooh.
which I am not great at. I'm still learning. I was the kid in school that would work on the project cover art for 3 weeks and not the actual project. So I am learning that. But a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, was when she was first building her business, she was always so good about she showed up for work hours, regardless of whether she had anything to do or not. And then she found stuff to do. And that was super inspiring. Like always show up for your hours and then leave when your hours are done. You need to
Right?
focus your energy. You need to know what you're doing. Create to-do lists. Use those apps that help you. Time management is huge.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot. What is a book, film, song, exhibition, or performance you wish everyone would experience?
When I was in New York last time, I went to a puppet show that was like a modernist puppet show, and I was like bawling. It was so good. It was amazing. It was a packed house. I forget the name. I will have to look them up. But I think the biggest takeaway for me was go to shows, read books, listen to music that you don't normally do. Get outside your genre and do that regularly because it will feed your creativity in a way nothing else will.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. And if you have not been to the All Puppet Players here in Phoenix, highly recommend them. What is something about money, funding, or fundraising that you had to unlearn?
Yeah, I think for me and for many of us, and probably particularly women, again, bringing in that intersectionality, is that money is somehow a reflection of our worth. So if we're feeling a little less confident or a little more unworthy, we don't feel competent in getting money and bringing money in. Something that helps
Wow.
me and a lot of my nonprofit clients, again, who are usually very focused on service and outwardly focused, is to consider that fundraising and bringing money into a project isn't about you. Even if we're
Ooh.
talking about you as the story, we're helping to bring in money to support something that's a good thing to have in the world. And if you can separate yourself out a little bit, it can take away the power of our own neuroses. Hopefully, we resolve all those and have great self confidence and self worth, but that can take time. So, in the meantime, giving yourself a little bit of separation from the project and recognizing that this is a worthy thing that you're asking for money for.
That was amazing. What is one small practice that keeps you going when the work gets hard?
Getting curious again,
Oh,
getting curious. That's huge.
what is, who is someone who opened a door for you?
Yeah, my original mentor in PR, Teresa Bigelow, she is the founder of Revel Society, and she has done PR for years and years, and was who I interned with and still work with. And she's one of those people that's done it for such a long time and for a lot of very well-known clients. She's just very easeful with it. So hanging out with someone where they make the work look easy is really good. It kind of rubs off a bit.
Oh, love that. What is a risk you took that changed everything?
This was the hardest question when you sent the questions to me because I think as creatives and as entrepreneurs, we tend to be risk takers. So
Mm,
we tend to have risk sort of throughout our lives as pivot points. I think for me, one risk that I took that changed everything for me is when I started my business, I took the risk of being very careful what clients I took on because I was a little bit older and I've worked for myself my whole life. And I didn't want to work with people that I didn't believe in. So instead of taking everyone that came across my doorstep in an attempt to make money, I was very specific and curated. And that took more time to build up. But that was a risk that for me was worth the payoff. I wanted to have a business that in 5 years I really liked doing.
lo- love that. What is one myth about being an artist, founder, or creative entrepreneur that you would like to retire?
That it comes from like one genius idea at 3 in the morning. Uh, Sometimes it does start that way, right? That can definitely happen. That's a real thing. Shower thoughts are a real thing. But then there's like the little steps that we have to continually take that make you into an actual entrepreneur. So when we see like biopics of like these genius entrepreneurs, it's kind of presented that way. And it's actually a lot more mundane than that.
It's in the day-to-day activities.
Yes.
What do you hope your work makes possible for someone else?
I like to think of what I do is being a megaphone for other people's stories that deserve to be out there. So for me, it's really platforming these worthy organizations and companies and projects, and getting them attention that they wouldn't normally have.
And finally, as an artist, entrepreneur, or creative leader, what do you believe we are responsible for saying out loud?
I think we need to call out harm that's being done.
Mm,
If we don't do that, we risk leaving people in the dark alone with that harm and unsupported. So, calling that out, even when it's difficult, is very, very important, particularly right now when there is a lot of that harm that's being done.
absolutely. That is so powerful. And this is such a beautiful place to end, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining me today and for helping us think about PR as a real tool for trust, visibility, authority, and funding. For everyone listening, I hope this conversation helps you think about the stories you're telling, where they're showing up, and how you are making it easier for the right people to find, believe in, and support your work. To connect with Jessica directly, visit jessicamichaelpr.com. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. And as always, we are with you in the work. Now go raise some money.